Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Conquer everything and compromise nothing. This show brings you real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. If you have never liked small talk and have been on a personal growth journey for a long time, stay tuned as Martine and her guests share empowering stories. Now is the time to own your past and look toward your future with hope. Believe in your dreams, and all that you want to achieve is possible. Transformation Coach Martine helps you accept and love you for you. It's time to listen to your heart and tap into your unlimited potential. You have the answers you need inside. Sometimes you just need the right guide to help allow transformation to happen. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome everyone to Transformation with Martine. This is where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. Happy Friday. I'm excited to be back. And I mean, I did a show last Friday, but it was on the island of Grenada. That was pretty darn cool. I've tried to stay with the island vibe here and colors and just relaxed style. I've got little slippers on from the island that I thought I'd bring back to keep in that peaceful essence. So welcome, everyone. For those who don't know, my show is about resilience of the human spirit and overcoming. And all the guests that I invite in here have stories, powerful stories like my guest today. I want to welcome to my show, Jodi, and I've already told her I might mess this up, Klaristenfeld. I hope, my friend, I got that right. Welcome. She's got a very powerful story.
Martine, thank you so much for having me. And yes, you said it correctly.
Woo!
So
a win.
And you have island vibes. And I will say this, I definitely have New York City girl vibes wearing my black.
Yeah. Hey, whatever vibe works for you, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So, well, let's start. Like, Jodi, where did you get into this? We're going to share your story, but where did you get into this transformational world? You had something happen to you. Tell us about that, and then let's just go into where it's led.
Well, I think for every person, when they become a parent, it's transformative in their life, especially when it's your first and you've never had a child before.
Yes.
I would say even more so, it's transformative when you experience some type of trauma around that birth. And that is exactly what happened to me. I gave birth unexpectedly 12 weeks early, and my husband was not even in this country. Fortunately, I wasn't alone. I was with my mom, and I had an amazing OB. But she came much earlier than planned, and I didn't understand for the longest time what really happened. And I transformed as I processed everything that had happened.
Was there, I know things happen. It's like babies come when they're going to come, and sometimes we can't stop. Sometimes, like me, I've got to be induced. What did happen?
I had what is called preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome. Now, preeclampsia is pretty common, that it happens in about 20 to 30% of births per year. Of that, only a small percentage, less than 1% of those births, get HELLP syndrome. The only way to help remedy your body shutting down from HELLP syndrome and help your blood pressure start to stabilize from the preeclampsia is to take the child from the mother. So it was completely exigent circumstances. I walked into the hospital at 1 o'clock, and 2 hours later, she was born.
Wow. That's so fast, especially for the first, but extenuating circumstances. Wow.
And I was completely knocked out. It wasn't even like I went into labor, nothing. Basically, the doctor said to my mother, Linda, I have no choice. I have to take the baby now, or else we might lose them both.
Oh my gosh, that's so hard, especially for your mother, let alone your husband not even being there. Were you guys in contact with him right
Well,
away? Or?
it all happened so fast. My husband was in Europe, and at that point in time of the day, it was dinner time, and he was hosting a dinner for about 40 people.
Boy.
And my mom kept trying to call him. And I think it was on the 6th or 7th time, my husband was like, I think I better take this phone call.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty important. So my mom spoke to him actually just as my daughter was rolled out of the labor and delivery OR and into the NICU.
Wow. I can only imagine how he must have been feeling being so far away and helpless, I would assume.
Yes, he said the airplane ride back the next morning, because it was too late that night to catch a flight back to the States,
Yeah.
was one of the longest airplane rides he's ever had in his whole life.
Gosh, I imagine. So scary. You want to be there and you can't get there any faster than you can get there, right? Yeah.
Right.
So
It's one of those things that control, right? You
Mhm.
have to just surrender to the circumstance.
Yeah, the unknown, and just trust in God, or
Yes.
I think for you and me it is God.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, trust in God that everything will be okay. So what happened next? She's in the NICU.
Well, I didn't meet her for 3 days, again, because of how sick I was. One of the I'll say side effects of having HELP syndrome and preeclampsia is your blood pressure is so high. And one of the ways to bring it down is by giving magnesium to the mom. And some occasions it causes the moms to hallucinate. I was one of those cases. So I was hallucinating, and I don't remember even much of those first 2-3 days. I remember only snippets. But my husband got to meet our daughter before I did. He came straight from the airport and met her. But when I did meet her for the first time, I just remember being so scared and confused and not even fully understanding what she was going to look like, what I had just went through. There was so much going on. And like I said, I was on drugs. I was also on blood pressure medicine. They were giving me platelets every so often because my platelet supply was so low. So there were so many things going on at the same time. I wish that I can remember more of the first time that I met her.
Yeah.
But I do remember my husband saying to me, well, does she look like a Jenna? And her name is Jenna. And I remember saying, of course, she's beautiful. She definitely looks like a Jenna. And but everything else kind of just went blank. I don't fully remember. I know that I didn't hold her until the day after. I just wasn't also steady in myself, and with all the apparatus and the PICC lines and the tubes, if I wasn't feeling confident in myself, there's no way I should have been holding her.
Oh, I get that. I get that. We're going to go to break in just a couple minutes, but if we backtrack a little bit, how were you feeling before you went to the hospital? Like, what was, I just remember certain, like with my son was the hardest. Like I was so sick a lot of the time. Were you feeling bad? Like what was going on?
I tell people that I had the easiest 28 weeks of pregnancy and then the hardest 4 days. So Jenna was what they call 28 and 4. So 28 weeks, 4 days, gestationally when she was born.
Yeah.
So around, I'd say 4 days, maybe 5 days, like at night, I started to not feel so great, but I thought that it was my last trimester. I had just reached that. And so pregnancy was catching up with me. That I started to gain weight. At that point, I'd only gained 6.5, 7 pounds. But what a real indication of something that was wrong was that I got a bloody nose that just wouldn't stop.
Oh, wow.
And that was a sign of the HELP syndrome, that the platelets, I was losing my platelets from my blood, because to get the blood flow to stop coming out of my body. And then the day before, not to get graphic, my pee turned like a really dark yellow, almost orange.
Wow.
And on the morning of her birth, I started to see double. And my mom had just come into town the night before. And when I woke up and I told her, I said, I've got to call the doctor. There's something wrong. And so she's like, okay, let's do it. And literally I went into his office at 12:30, walked into the hospital at 1, and she was born at 3:16. I had no idea actually how sick I was. I thought I kind of gave excuses for all the things that were happening to me, and was like, oh, well, I'm a first-time mom, so, this could just be normal. It's cold in the winter in New York and my blood vessels are expanding. So maybe that's why I have a bloody nose.
Yeah. It's interesting. Do you find that, well, so many women, especially that I've talked to, that we minimize things because we're kind of just used to just going, because we got to take care of our families, whatever it is, you keep going. And even when I was, before I was diagnosed with cancer, it was like, I really, as a woman, sometimes you don't even know like pains, what part they're actually, is it like your reproductive areas, or is it something that, sometimes you don't quite know just the pain. Sometimes cramping feels the same. So yeah, I'm so happy to hear that your mom came in that day and that you knew, okay, I got to go do something. Like you listened.
I was just fortunate that she came in. It was like you said, God was watching over us, right?
Man.
Someone was watching over us.
Yeah. Oh, thank God. Thank you,
Yes.
God. Okay. So we are going to take a break and then we'll come back with more of Jodi's story. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Jodi Klaristenfeld, and we are talking about the birth of her child we're at 28 weeks instead of full term, and just the unknowing, the scary. And as a first-time mother, it's always scary anyway, but to have this on top of it, that's very scary. So Jodi, as your husband got in there and he met your daughter and you met your daughter and you kind of started the healing of your body, how were you doing? Not only physically, but how was your whole being?
I was extremely fragile. And I would say I was fragile for quite some time, even after my daughter came home from the NICU. So she came home 3 days before her due date. Okay. So she was in the NICU for 77 days. And about a month and a half after that, I was walking on the street, New York City, with my daughter, and we had a baby nurse. And, people comment, oh, such a pretty baby, how old, things like that. So when I told this woman how old she was, she said to me, well, are you sure? And I said, well, of course I'm sure how old my child is. She goes, well, she's really tiny. Are you feeding her? Oh. And it took every ounce of strength I had. And our baby nurse literally took me, grabbed my back as if to say, I got this. And she said to the woman, ma'am, she is as old as she is supposed to be. And I learned actually an extremely valuable lesson in that, is that I don't owe anyone an explanation, let alone some stranger that I have never met before. But it just shows you the fragility of where I was. I was letting everything and anything that people said to me affect me and my birth story. And so it took a really, really, really long time. And it wasn't even just the physical, it was more the mental that took longer. I would say that, yes, I had a C-section, but I didn't even know I had a C-section because I was dealing with so many other issues that the physical part of it just didn't really matter. yes, the blood pressure, and that took about like 5-6 months for that
Mhm.
to subside with medication.
Yeah.
But the mental piece, I would say, took me about 2.5 years. And I remember going to our pediatrician saying to him, Dr. Edelstein, I feel like I can finally take a deep breath and not tread water.
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
in that fight or flight mode for such
mhm.
a long period of time.
Gosh. So, was it time and patience with yourself, loving yourself, being kind to yourself, or did you have other people assisting?
I think it was a combination of a lot of things.
Mhm.
My OB, who is a rock star,
Mhm.
even on like the first day that I held her, right before that, he came in and it was Saturday morning. And I said, there's something wrong with me. I don't feel bonded to my daughter. I don't understand. Everyone says the minute you give birth, it's supposed to be beautiful, and I don't understand. And he said to me, you have to cut yourself some slack. But more than that, the fact that you're asking me means you're already a great mom and there's nothing to worry about,
Mhm.
because you have just been through trauma. And once you process that, then you can be there and show up for your daughter. So
Yeah.
I had him in my corner. I'll say my husband, who also is an extremely optimistic person, as am I
Mhm.
usually, but through this,
Yeah,
it was it was tested.
of course.
And I have a great support system in my family and
Mhm.
friends. And I really, really tried to focus, compartmentalize. A really good friend of mine who is a doctor said, just compartmentalize everything, think
Mhm.
small steps. And when I started to think smaller steps, it really calmed me down and allowed me to take in the moment.
Mhm.
And I wasn't as worried about, well, when is she going to start rolling over or all those other things? It was more about the day to day, and that made it much more manageable. I still felt fragile insofar as when other people would say, oh, well, that was your birth story. Like there was judgment, and that it was something that I did. And in most cases, where people give birth premature,
Mhm.
there is no reason in
Right.
terms of there's nothing that anyone did or didn't do. It's not because I
Mhm.
ate the wrong thing or drank the wrong thing or
Right.
so, and I was taking that on to myself, like that mom guilt. And I
Mhm.
had to really work hard and process that. And once I processed that, in addition to, you know, looking at small steps as opposed to globally,
Mhm.
I was able to um, help myself that much more.
Mm.
And one other thing, sorry. I
Oh,
also
sure.
I also saw how my daughter was beginning to flourish, hence the name Flourish. I would always talk about her
Yes.
flourishing and growing. And I was able to watch her do something that she couldn't do the day before or
Yes.
conquer some
Yeah.
tasks. And that gave me confidence too, that everything was
Yeah.
going to be okay.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. I was going to ask you how you got your name. We didn't talk about that before. I really, it seems like it's getting better now, but other women tearing other women down just, oh, that just, it's not okay. I even saw just this little kind of a more of a comical kind of video, but just this younger woman saying, anybody over 40, don't wear a ponytail or anything like that. It's ridiculous. And this other woman who 50 or so, and she's like, I can say a lot of different things to you, but one of them is do not judge other women, ever judge other women. We are here. we should be here to stand up for each other and cheer each other on, whether it's in business, hey, there's enough business for all of us, or just being sympathetic ear and being loving to each other, because we need each other.
Completely.
You know?
I mean, I think you hear those things, especially from a corporate standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where women kind of, I don't want to say block other women in some way, when the truth is we should be lifting them up and supporting them and encouraging them to do whatever it is that they want to. There, to your point, there's more than enough business for everyone.
Yes.
There's more than enough seats on the bus for everyone. And I completely agree. And people can be mean. It's just a fact of life. My dad has always said to me that I have to have a thick skin in business and in life in general. And like what that woman said to me that day, I feel bad for myself because I didn't have a thick skin, and I didn't stroll my daughter on the street for a really long time after that, because I just felt so wounded. But I do need a thicker skin. And I will say that to all women for all aspects of life. No matter what comes at you, you should just be like, I've got this. I can take care of myself.
I believe that once we start doing at least the work on us, you know, it's like we can begin to realize that her comment was nothing to do with you, really. She's just not a very nice person.
And even if you think that, keep it to yourself.
Exactly.
And I'm a stranger. I'm not like your best friend or a relative. There was no upside in saying that. And the same with other women. If there's no upside, keep it to yourself.
That's right. That's right. It's crazy. So as you started just healing and working on yourself, we are going to take a break in a moment again. However, what was like, because you're doing micro moves, or like in my community, sometimes we call it needlepoint moves, you know, just little steps. What started growing in you before we lead into other things? What started growing?
I think I was, again, lucky and fortunate to have the benefit of a wonderful support system around me in terms of Jenna's therapists, who were also encouraging me and cheering me on just the way as they would cheer her on to complete different tasks. So I had them to lean on, and they had worked with babies who were in the NICU before, and they were the ones that helped give me hope, because other than that, I didn't have anyone to talk to, and I didn't know anyone else who I could turn to and ask for advice or ask questions. And I really didn't want to ask Google either.
Right. So in going through this and having support of the nurses and husband and, you know, your mom and just family, I imagine that this is what started breeding you serving others, because, you know, I have one client right now who, she started her business because not only like her as a child, she just wasn't really seen or heard. So her goal in life was to make sure children were heard and seen. So that is what started her whole thing. So this is what started Flourish for you. We're going to take a break and then come back and just talk more about what you've created. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Jodi Klaristenfeld. Name. But like mine, it's not always easy to say. So welcome back, everyone. And my guest today, she has been sharing about having her daughter at 28 weeks and the journey of healing and starting a business to help other women who have had children prematurely. So Jodi, Flourish has started now. What, well, okay, back up a little bit here. So you knew you wanted somebody to help, or you knew you wanted to help people with this. and you wanted people to talk to about it and have a place to talk to about it. So guide us through the steps you took to create this, and then now where you are.
Well, when I first knew that I wanted to help other parents in a similar situation, I didn't really know exactly what that meant or what that was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I sought the help of a mentor or business coach.
Yeah.
And before this, I had never had one of those. And it's been nothing short of amazing, because she helped me iterate what it is that I wanted Flourish to be. And we went through, many, many discussions. I would liken it almost to therapy in a way, where she would lead me down the path through the questions, but it was all through my own self-discovery, like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yep.
And it was such a great process in learning what it is that I wanted Flourish to be, and also how it could still grow and evolve as my daughter grows and evolves, or as I get further down my parenting journey with her.
Right. Oh. So when you think about all you've been through, how does it just make you feel to what you've got now?
I feel really, really good about myself, especially, putting a business together is not easy.
No.
Let alone also trying to work a full-time job and be a mom and a wife, and also try and carve out some time for myself as well. So I'm really proud of myself for doing it.
Yeah.
That said, I know there are so many people out there who are not served. This is a large community of people that are kind of left to fend for themselves, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I would say it's because the hospitals don't have enough support, and I'll go and maybe a step further and say insurance companies, right, maybe won't necessarily cover certain types of treatment, especially when it comes to like from peer to peer. One of the things that I love about what I do when I talk to women is that, and I can talk to men, I have, but by and large, it's mostly women, is that they tell me, I really get it. There's this unspoken bond between me and the other women, just because we've been through a situation that not many have been through. And while, yes, over 10% of babies each year are born premature and are in the NICU, still, chances are in your small group of friends, there probably isn't someone that has gone through that. So where do you go to get the support and the help? Or how do you learn about what your child is going to need when they first come home from the hospital? And also, where do you go for trying to just heal yourself in a way that people can't possibly empathize with? Because people think your journey ends when your child comes home from the hospital, but that is just not the case. It actually gets much harder.
So I only know, I just, I've brought 3 children home. And I know, especially the first one, like, oh my gosh, I do remember actually like taking the car seat out and actually setting the car seat on the coffee table, sitting down going, oh my God, what do I do now? I don't have the help of nurses. I don't have the help. Yes, my mother, but oh, what do I do? But it's got to be completely different for you. So tiny.
And well, so when Jenna was born, she was 2 pounds. And when she came home, she was 5.5 pounds. And I was so excited, yet I was terrified at the same time. And I think the juxtaposition of those emotions perfectly demonstrates the emotions of all parents whose children are in the NICU. Even if your child is born full term and goes to the NICU for whatever the reason, it's still traumatic because you aren't bringing your child home, or you have to ask someone permission to hold your child. These aren't things that are typical, right? And yes, coming home, I realized very quickly, well, we don't have 24/7 care of doctors, nurses, trained professionals, plus all those monitoring machines that we had the benefit of having during those almost 3 months that Jenna was in the hospital.
Right.
But at the same time, I do also know that if she wasn't ready to come home, they wouldn't have sent her home.
Right.
And if they didn't think we could do it, they wouldn't have sent her home either. Right. So there's also a lot of trust, and you have to have trust in yourself, though it's really, really hard to have that, and have that for any parent, to your point, right? When you come home, especially with your first, you're like, okay, well, where's the instruction book? There is none.
Oh God. Yep.
And this person is completely dependent upon you for absolutely everything.
Everything. Yes. Oh, terrifying.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
my goodness. So a person, a woman that comes to you and she has a maybe born with is the same 28 weeks as you or whatever. How do you two start working together?
Well, what happens usually is that I will talk to someone. I'll do like a free consult for like 15, 20 minutes and talk to them about what is really their biggest challenge at this exact moment. And if it's someone that's still in the NICU, I offer them our audio courses. So there are 20 stories. They're 3 to 5 minute stories of instances or, challenges that were overcome. Basically, these little stories are designed to affirm parents that they are not alone, give them positive hope, and that they will get through this. So I tell them, this is someplace you could start if you don't feel like talking to me one-on-one, because the person also has to be ready to fully talk to me. Additionally, and I find this more once people have come home from the NICU, when they're trying to get their routine, they realize their routine is much different than most people when their children come home. There's many more specialists that you have to go to. There's early intervention and therapists. There's a lot more that needs to be done. And since parents, friends can't understand, that's really when they want to come and talk to me, because I'm an outlet for them, right? Or I help provide them guidance, or tell them, maybe let's try and just tackle one thing at a time as opposed to 5 things. And I also have a directory of specialists, therapists, state by state, county by county, where parents can find therapists for their children. COVID did not really help the situation. A lot of providers that people could get through the state systems went either stopped doing it because in the early stages they go to people's homes, or they just do it privately and not necessarily take insurance. So I have formulated directories where people can go and find providers close to their home so that they could start to get the help for their children during those pivotal months of growth and development.
That's amazing. That is amazing to have that at your access without just stressing and, doing a bunch of research when you're trying to just take care of your child. That's really awesome. So, where can people find you? I know it's out here, but where can people find you anyway, verbally?
Yes, well, people can find me on any social channel of @flourish.com, FLRRISH.com. They can email me, hello@flourish, FLRRISH or they can look us up online, www.flourish.com.
Awesome. So right before we go to break, what would you tell someone who this just happened to? What would you tell them with your experience?
I would tell them that they and their child are much stronger than they know. And that please know you are not alone.
Yes, absolutely. Because you're not alone. There are so many stories. Sometimes you think there was a guest on my show a while back who her son had an issue with his eyes that I've never even heard of. So there's a lot of things like that that you haven't heard of, or even I have an autoimmune vitiligo, which until I was diagnosed with it, I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
So there's a lot of cases of that, but once you start, just like, it's the same with once you get a certain car, everybody has the same car, right? That you run into. You will run into people after that has a condition or something going on, and you're not alone.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct.
Yeah. All right. We'll be right back, everyone, with final thoughts. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Jodi Klaristenfeld, and we've been sharing about how her daughter, Jenna, was born at 28 weeks and her story. So Jodi, you created this business, Flourish, which I love that name, and you help other women who have premature children, and you've got a whole network of people and making it easy for them to find the help they need. So being that it is Mental Health Month, we were talking about that on the break, and the fact that, well, we've touched on a few times during this show about how people can just be mean, whether it's women to women or just people in the street, right, commenting. What would you say to people who, well, I don't think anything hurts as bad as when our child is picked on or when they're going through pain. So what would you say about, your child possibly being a little different or too small right now, or whatever the case?
You're absolutely right. I think when someone says something about your child, it takes it to another level.
Yep.
But I would say to parents out there that everyone's growth and development trajectory is different. Everyone is on a different timetable. Those milestones are guidelines. And especially if your child is born early, know that those milestones generally your child will not reach. And also in the case of Jenna and most preemie babies, you adjust for their age depending upon their weight and gestational for 2 to 3 years. So you count back. So just say when Jenna was 15 months, she was technically only 12 months old.
Right.
But there is a bell curve for a reason. Not every person can come in first place. Not everyone comes in the middle. And some people, lag a little bit. But I will say this. I think the resilience and the fortitude and determination of these children who are always fighting constantly from day one can call upon that later on in life. And it will only serve them well because they've had to fight since they were born.
Yes. Yes, man, powerful story to share in their own lives later on down the line.
Yes, certainly. And you know what? Just because your child learns differently than someone else doesn't mean that they're not going to go to Harvard or become president of the United States. Look at Albert Einstein. I think they said he was somewhere on the spectrum, things like that. A lot of really intelligent, high achievers are. And there is nothing wrong if your child gets to 2 + 2 = 4 in a different way. Even if they get there 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, they get there.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. Because we are all very different. I mean, if I I'm a little ahead of you in the parenting here, but I remember like just sometimes helping my kids with homework, and well, I was taught a different way. And I know I have to support in how they're being taught now so they understand from the teachers, but sometimes it helps to just put it in a different spin, like this is how this worked. So, if you actually figure out a different way, it's okay, and maybe we have to learn right now in this way, but then we can figure it out in some other way as well, and then kind of have your own technique of making things work.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to destigmatize that and to not let parents feel bad, because learning is a process for everyone. And like you said before, it's something we do every single day of our lives. So why not learn to be more tolerant of other people or of other people's experiences, and especially of their children, if maybe they don't fit inside the proverbial box. The truth is, most people don't fit in that box, but society says we should.
And really, would we all want to be the same? No. God, what a boring world that would be, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. So tell me what your next venture is and what you're thinking about in your business now, and what else do you want to create?
Well, right now, I'm really excited to be helping so many people. I'm holding my first group event next week, where a bunch of moms can sit and chat and feel supported by other moms. And I think that's important too. Again, that sense of community. And one day I'd love to be on a panel or do a talk. I just feel so passionate about this and about how people learn and grow and develop, and how they can turn an experience into something totally different and change their life because of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you mentioned talking more, speaking more. By the way, I do TEDx talks. By the way, I get people TEDx talks. So think about that. We've talked about that a little bit.
Yes.
Think about it. Yes. And when you go through something like you have, not only do you have a story to share, but there's a resilience about you. So I imagine that you could speak to other people about other things. Like when you think about that, what gets on your heart, like to share, to help other people grow?
I think mainly, at least for right now, that I can think of is when it comes to children. Just anything and everything about children, I would love to help people and talk about the mental health issues that parents go through when their child is struggling. Because if your child is struggling, then by extension, you're struggling too, and how that trickles down to every aspect of your life, and that there should be no shame in trying to get help and support, whatever that help and support is. It's all about setting your child up for success and having them love their life.
Absolutely.
And the only people that really could do that for them or show them the way are their parents.
And you just mentioned shame and all that too. We just have a couple of minutes, but I am thinking, like, if a child, like, if they feel like they're not quite right, or they don't feel like, if they feel really different, how do you support those children, especially ones that were premature or are lagging a little behind, and they're not, I don't know, like my daughter had a lot of trouble with speech. So what would you say to parents and supporting their children?
Well, I would say there's no shame in getting help. Who in this world couldn't benefit from a little extra love and support, whether that be in the classroom or at home after school or at some center? I think every single person could benefit from a little extra love, support, and attention. And I would try and teach them to destigmatize that. But also, I would encourage them, if where their child is in this moment is not right for them, than to look elsewhere where they can be more supported, whether it's in the classroom or right outside. Because you know what, there are plenty of schools out there, and there are plenty of ways that people learn. And maybe you just have to look right outside your initial neighborhood.
Right. Absolutely. I just, final thoughts and all that on my part is like, if we could just remember that we're all human, we all hurt, we all go through a lot of things, and gosh, let's especially support our children, let alone each other as women, as men. Let's support each other and teach our children.
Yes.
To be supportive.
And to teach them empathy as well, and to just be kind and considerate of others.
Absolutely. So tell everybody where they can find you again.
Everyone can find me at www.flourish.com, FLRRISH.com, or hello@flourish.com, and on any social media channel at Flourish, FLRRISH.com.
Thank you so much for being here, Jodi. It's been an absolute pleasure, and what you offer, this is so needed. Thank you
so much, Martine. I really, really appreciate spending the time chatting with you. I feel like I could chat with you forever, actually.
Oh, I do too. Absolutely. We could keep going. Thank you.
And I want to wish you a happy early Mother's Day.
Oh, you too. Absolutely. Happy Mother's Day to every mother out there from Jodi and I. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Transformation with Martine, real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. Listen or watch live every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com as Martine and her guests have deep, meaningful conversations, sharing empowering stories. Step into your passions and lead with your heart. If you are ready to accept and love you for you, visit martineemmons.com and start allowing transformation to happen today.